So it is a library. It is a library required to translate, or you can simply say you can transform the data, or you say parse, use it to parse the data into JSON, parse the data into JSON. Body parser is required to parse the data into JSON. So what it does is it uses URL encoding. It uses URL encoding. Technically, it uses URL encoding and converts the form data into JSON in order to submit to the server, to the API, in order to submit to the server, actually to the server. So data by default that comes from the server is converted into a JSON form, and we need a body parser to convert the data into JSON, which is coming from the client. Client submits the data. That data need to be converted into JSON. You have to convert the data into JSON form. So for that, so because Mongo is expecting a JSON type data to come in, we have to convert the JSON. For that, we need a body parser. We need to download and install a body parser for our project. So what you have to do is, so download and install body parser. So for your server side application, you download and install body parser for your server side application. So that means what you can do is you can say npm install body parser. You need a body parser. You have to install this body parser. So in order to handle the communication in JSON format, so install body parser. So that is the command you have to run. So let's go to the terminal, and in the terminal of our project, we will convert the body install npm install body parser. So body hyphen parser. We are downloading and installing the body parser. So this is initially required. So we have to use this body parser. These are all general server side Node.js Express related concepts. Initially, we are using them. So with a very little brief knowledge, we are using them. So which you can use with a lot of other options also. Initially, this is enough. So what are the libraries actually you need is Mongo client library, Express library, and body parser library. So the body parser also installed. Okay. So we installed body parser also here. Fine. So body parser is also done. Now, how do we use body parser? I will show you in the API how we can configure the body parser. So this is required. So generally body parser is required. So we have to syntactically import the body parser. So where some body parser is equal to require. So import body parser. So we need to configure the body parser. Okay. And our Express application have to use I have to use body parser. It has to use the body parser. Body parser will provide an option so that converts the data into, it will convert the data into JSON. That means whatever data is submitted. So form body, that means it has to use URL encoded, and URL encoded, you have to set extended to true. So this is technically for converting the data into JSON that is submitted, because data submitted, it will be in a it will come in the query string form, or it will be from form body. Whatever data is, because you know that if form is submitted on GET request, form will be in query string. If form is submitted on POST request, then data will be on form body. So technically, whatever data is submitted from the URL, so we need to encode the data, and after encoding the data, our application have to convert the data into JSON. That means app.use body parser dot JSON. It converts the data into JSON. So this is the basic approach we need to follow. So we have to configure a body parser, and we need to use the body parser. This body parser will collect the data coming from the form. It converts into the JSON. So that is another important you need, especially while working with the server side APIs. Okay. Now one more you need to know is about CORS. You need to know about CORS, C-O-R-S. So actually CORS related CORS configuration. This is also very important, especially while working with server-side integrations. CORS is actually cross-origin resource sharing. Actually, CORS is very common thing, and in web development, it is a very general concept actually. So it is a very general thing actually. Suppose any web developer knows about CORS related concepts. Suppose we have a HTML page. So you might have used it or not, I don't know, but generally even image, when I am using image will have some SRC. Image will have an option called, so image in the attributes, we have height and width. Actually, images can be defined with an option CORS also. That means it can be defined with CORS, that is cross origin. We can use anonymous or user credentials. Very few people know about these all attributes until or unless you worked at development level, at high level. So because these are not the general things, there are so many attributes for image which you may don't know. For example, image have a importance attribute. So image have cross origin attribute. Image have SRC set, source set attribute. These are all general HTML attributes only, but very few people encounter with them and use them. They know about them. So at high level, they need them actually. The concept is simple, not only image, even if you are using a link element, link. So link also have cross origin. Generally, the point about cross origin is nothing but, so the key concept about this cross origin is actually what happening in our application, we need them regularly because so across the origin resource sharing is blocked actually. Suppose we have our client app. So this is the client app. Actually client app is running on a server, and this client app server is running on So http://127.0.0.1 and 4200. It is running on this. So we have the same on the same machine. We have on the same server. We have server app, that is server side. Suppose Node.js, and this is having HTTP. So 127.0.0.1, and here 8080 is having our API actually, API. And actually MongoDB is present on different server again. So if you have seen that MongoDB is on different server, MongoDB, so :127.0.0.1. So it is on a different server actually. It is configured and defined on a different server. So usually what happens is, now we usually have a firewall. So we have a firewall. So firewall, right? We have a firewall. And this firewall is going to block the resources that are coming from across origin. That means from different resource. That means your application is running on different server, means different port number. Server app is running on different port number, and they are trying to share information between them. Then this firewall thinks that this is dangerous. It thinks that it is dangerous, and it will block it. Because from some unknown location the data is coming, that is always dangerous, and it will try to block them. Now we have to tell the middleware that if tell the firewall that this is not allow the request from this application. Then the middleware communicates with the firewall, and middleware tells the firewall that so allow these requests from these application. Then firewall allows those requests from those applications so that they are not blocked actually. So that is what actually the concept of cross origin. That's the reason. So when you give images and others also, you can restrict the images coming from unknown resources. So that is what actually cross origin. So it is there for images and links everywhere. We can configure that. So this is required for sharing of information. Configuration. Actually, here the point is server application, and client application. Server application and client application are running on different port numbers. So sharing information across the origin, so will be blocked. So you have to allow sharing, so across origin for different types of requests. So you can manage that. You can manage by configuring CORS in your server, in your middleware. So you can manage that by configuring CORS in your middleware. So it requires a specific configuration setting to write. All have the same attributes, but we need to allow them actually. Suppose I am accessing some resources from locations like, suppose, we have some HTML file, and here I am creating a link. So link relation is equal to some style sheet, and link href is equal to, so that is coming from some .. node modules and bootstrap bootstrap dist css, bootstrap dot css, strap.css. That is actually the origin and options we are configuring here, technical. Now see, when I run this on the server, I am running this page on server, and we will do one thing. We will inspect that element here. So we don't have any content here. So we just have this option and heading. So hello, something like this. Yeah, we have some content configured here. So yeah, and you can observe when I inspect here. So in the debugging, when we inspect here, so you can see toggle. Yeah, in the network category, I go to the network category, and once start the request came for this demo.html, and I open this. You can see that the server is configured with see demo.html. So see the headers. In the headers, you have details like request method is get, status code is 304, remote address is this one, 5500 is the port number for this. And you can see the settings here. See, response headers, how the response should be coming. Request came, response what came. So accept and access control, allow credentials, true. We have content type, what type of content is coming. So content length, how much content is coming. And you can see that here it is having other details like accept what type of resources. That means accept HTML resource, XHTML or XML resource, image or any resource. If I restrict any type here, that means don't allow, then it will not accept the request from that particular type of file and it will block them. So that means which one to accept, which one to reject. All such details are need to be configured by the developer. That means we should not allow the request for PDF. We should not allow request for some other. So we need to configure all these settings actually. This is what generally you will learn when you are dealing with server-side technologies. You will understand about that. Means how the request handlers are handled, request options are configured. Now, how we configure the CORS. So CORS related settings. So express CORS configuration comprises of following so details. CORS configuration comprises of following details. Generally, we write like this syntactically. How we write means CORS related settings are very important. If you don't do that, then exchanging of data, especially reading the data is okay. Submitting the data, modifying the data, these all are not allowed actually. So for that, we have an app that is our Express application. Express application should use a function. This function should manage three details actually. This function should manage the details. What are the details? I will write in the code and show you the detail also. So this should manage request and response and next. Next is an execute function here. So in this first point is response header. Response header. That means from which location the response is allowed. That means from which location the response is allowed. That means a request, you are making a request, response header. So from which location the response is allowed. That means you can define, so by using an attribute called access control, we have to configure access control. So all origin, and origin from any specific port number we can define, or simply asterisk. It will allow from every location. We can configure response header. We can configure response header as a access control. Several settings we have to define. Two important three settings are required for us. One is from which location you want to allow, what type of content you want to allow, and what methods you want to allow. These three things initially are enough for us. So access control, allow headers. Allow headers indicates what kind of content is allowed. So that means, so from the origin, so we have to define from the origin, what kind of content. That means X requested with. So what content type is requested with? That means any content type. That means we have to configure content type, and we should say accept the content type. That means any type of content is accepted, whether it may be image, it may be a JSON, it may be XML, any content type is accepted. And what methods are accepted? We have to configure the header with access control and allow headers. So here we have to allow methods this time. What methods allow? Get method allow, post method allow, put method allow. What are the methods you want to allow? So you can configure the methods and load this into the middleware. So by using next will execute and load these settings into the memory. Now your application is ready to accept the request from any origin and send response, to accept request for any type of file and send response, to accept any type of method, only three methods, that is get method, post method. You can write all the four methods. We have several other methods also. So these methods are allowed. This is a very big concept, understanding about CORS, working with the CORS, and very key concept in real world development process, but not for Angular, that is for server-side technologies. So that means in server-side technology, everyone must be aware of how do we configure this, because this is the primary thing that you will face as an issue, especially while sharing data across servers. So this you need to be perfect in configuring. So everything is ready. That means everything is configured, everything is ready, and we need to handle. So we need to handle and process this and manage this. So while configuring the API, two more additional things you have learned today is that you need a body parser, and what is the role and responsibility of body parser server side, and why you need CORS configuration. Without that, what's the problem and why we need that? Actually, temporarily, without writing this also, you can manage. How you can manage is, for example, I have Chrome. So we have browser. Suppose I have a Chrome browser. In the Chrome browser, what you can do is in Chrome, or what you can do is different browsers will provide the plugins actually. You can download a plugin. By using that plugin, so you can simply enable or disable these CORS options actually. So that means now it is managed through a plugin. You don't need to write the code actually. So I will show you. So suppose this is the Chrome browser, and in this Chrome browser, I am looking for, you can see here, Chrome : apps. We have Chrome apps, and at the bottom screen, you can see there is a Chrome Web Store. Go to the Chrome Web Store and you search for Chrome extensions like CORS. CORS is one extension I am searching for. and course related several extensions it will give you. So these are course extensions. So cross domain, cross resource, these are allow control, allow origin. You can see that this is by default there. When you go to this plugin, so when you go to that plugin, it will show the details about the plugin. Course allowed, course is blocked. So you don't need to write any program. Just you can enable this on your browser and it will take care about blocking and allowing and all. So you can just enable these plugins. Of course, you cannot ask everyone like download a course plugin, I will send you the data. That's not satisfying, right? So that means you cannot ask the client to download this plugin and enable every time when he wants to receive the data. That's not good. That's the reason we configure. Of course, you see there is a plugin here. So I have a plugin in the Chrome. And if I click on this, then cross origin resources are blocked. And again, I click on that. That means it is on. It will allow. So generally, it is an API security and API observability. So identifying the API issues, it has a lot of work. So it identifies the threats coming from unknown resources. It will warn you about the threats. So many are there. Technically, these are very commonly required every time. So especially when you are working with server side. Actually, we don't need this if we write the logic here. If we can write this, then you don't need that plugin to be configured. Otherwise, it will block, right? You have to know that point. So these are the general things you need to learn. And now, after you know all these, now you can create a server-side API, and that server-side API will be responsible for handling interaction. Let's finally create one API for handling get and post methods, how we can manage that. So let's create business layer. So to handle communication. So communication between client side and the server side application. To handle communication between client side and server side application. So this is the option we are doing. Create a business layer to handle communication between client side and server side application. That means handling all the communication with the databases also, right? Let's create that. For that, what are the requirements actually? First, you have to install the following library. You have to install the following library, and you know them. So you have to install MongoDB, and how we can install MongoDB. So the process we know, npm install MongoDB. Okay. Second, you need to install Express, and that you can do so by using npm install Express. Okay, that is for MongoDB is for connecting with the database, and Express is for creating the API, and body parser. So body parser also. We need a body parser, and the body parser, the body parser is required, and npm install. I'm giving the final option here. So body parser. Okay. So that is one option, how we configure that, right? So you have installed. So these are the libraries. Already those libraries are installed here. I have them. Okay. Now the next step is you have to create a server side business layer, business logic to handle interaction with database in backend, and web server and web server. These are the two options we need. So we need to create a server side business logic to handle interaction with the database and web server. You can simply say that, so client side application and client side application. This is what we need to create. So how do we create that? So let's see. That means for that, I am writing some REST API .js. This is the program. In this program, I will keep all the logic. So for handling interaction with the data sources. So let's go to this REST API and let's add REST API.js. And this contains everything. First, we have to import the MongoDB library. So MongoDB library. Import the MongoDB library. Or you can simply say that import all the library. Import library, whatever you need, you can import the library. So let's import library. What are the libraries we need? Where we need Mongo client library. So require, and you require MongoDB dot Mongo client. Fine. Next, another, we need the library express. So require express. Okay, second. So we need another one. So that is body parser. Okay, is equal to require and body parser. These three are enough. The next step, you have to configure connection string. So this is Mongo connection string, MongoDB connection string. And that is nothing but here we have a URL. So that is MongoDB :/127.0.0.1 and :27017. That is the URL. I'm configuring it. Yeah, the next option. So after defining this, so we have to configure. Yeah, we have to configure. So the middleware. Just comment wise I'm giving. And that is where app is equal to express. This is configuring the middleware. In that, so we need a body parser to define. So in that configure body parser. How to configure the body parser? Our application have to use body parser and URL encoded. It should extended to true. So that is how we are configuring. URL encoded extended to true, right? So yeah, so this is the option we have configured. Fine. And the next important is after that, the body parser. So body parser, actually app have to use the body parser to convert into JSON. App.use, we have to use body parser and .json. It converts the data into JSON. Into which format the data need to be converted, you have to configure that. So body parser is ready. So this is responsible for translating the data. Every technology have a different approach to define them. Right? Now we need to configure important CORS. So we need to configure CORS. So app.use. So it should use a function and it is expecting a request and a response and next. So that is the handler, right? And what are the options we have to define? So response header should add the settings for access control control, and all origin, access control all origin, and from asterisk, that means it is allowing from all resource locations, means you are not restricting to any IP address. You can define any IP address. Another header, we have to define access control, and allow headers, and we have to define the origin. So origin, so X, and origin, and in the origin we have to define, so X requested with, so requested with what content type, we have to define the content type, and accept all type of data, this is we need to configure. And one more, we need a response header, so we need to allow, so access control, allow headers, hello methods. What are the methods allowed is get method allow, so is a post method allowed, is put method allowed, and delete method allowed. So these are the options we need to define, and we need to load this into the settings, so by using next. So it will load all this configuration into the middleware settings. So this is the basic cross origin settings you need to configure in order to handle the cross origin. Even you don't have this, you can access the data, but you cannot submit the data. And even you don't have this, you can submit the data if you have installed the plugins in the browser, and through the browser you are enabling them. Through the browser you are configuring and enabling them. Okay, then after configuring this, now we need to create the API request, get request. Get request is, so we have /get products. Generally, traditionally, we have options. We write like this, actually API /get products, like that. It's your wish how you want to configure, how you want to define. You can manage anyway. So it depends on different traditions, right? So I'm just using get products. So get products is a method, and what this API method has to do, so request and response. This get products should connect with the MongoDB and return the data from a table. So that means this is for get products. It should return the data from that and display the data. Initially, we will write this. That means we have to use a Mongo client. So we have to use Mongo client dot connect with the URL and a callback function. And this callback function is expecting an error, and here it is expecting client object. Okay, and if not error, so what should do? Else, if there is an error, we will log the error. So console.log, we will keep that error. And if there is no error, so then we will create a database object. Database is equal to, so client object DB will provide access to Angular 10 DB. That is our database. And from the database, we have to get the collection called TBL products, and find, so .toArray, and the toArray is a function which will return the records if there are no errors. That means it returns an error and documents. Now these documents need to be sent as a response if there is no error. If no error, then if there is error, and log that error just to identify what the problem we are having. And if there is no error, then what to do here is simple. So we need to send response.send those records. The documents need to be sent as response. So this get products is an API method which is going to return the list of all the products. So that is the get method ready. Okay. Now we need to create another API method for inserting the records into the table. And it will actually collect the data coming from the form in our client-side application. So we need to create an app.post method, and I will give as add products is the method. And what this add products method have to do is, so it should request the data, request and response. It should request the data coming from form, and it should submit the data to the database. Okay. Then first we use Mongo client. We have to connect. That means connect. So with the URL, there are two methods actually. We can connect every time, or we can connect. We can pull the connections, right? So client object is created, and if not error, say if not error, then what should happen? Okay. And else, so console.log, log that error. And if there is no error, then what to do is, so here, so same where database is equal to client object.db. We have to communicate with Angular 10 DB. Okay. And here, so we have to insert the data. Now the data is actually coming from, technically the data is coming from our a form. So from the form, we need to collect the data and insert the data. That means now we will create a data object. But this data object requests the data from the form body, because you will submit on post. It is requested on form body. Then what is the data requested? Actually, the data requested, so according to what we need there, right? So cd program files, cd MongoDB, and cd server, cd 4.0, and cd bin and Mongo. And this is the Mongo client here. And here use Angular 10 DB and db.tbl products.find and .pretty, and this is the data it is expecting: a name, price, in stock, photo, and category ID. These are the details it is expecting, configuring those details. So in that case, now we are expecting those details here. So what are the details here? So we have name. So name, and it is coming from the form body that our request object will collect. So by using request body, we can request that particular field value, that is name field is collected. Now similarly, we have price. Price will come from, so price will come from request.body. From the body, we are collecting from price field the price. And we need in stock. So from in stock, so request.body, and we have to get in stock. And we have photo and category ID. Photo and request.body, and we need to configure the photo. And we have, so category ID. So request.body, and it is coming from the category ID. We configured in this way, right? Now we need to consume this and we need to present. That means this is the data. This data is requested from your Angular form. From Angular form, we will send these details, which will be collected by this API. And this data need to be inserted into the table. This data need to be inserted into the table. Generally, how we can manage that? That means how we can insert this into the table. How do we configure that? Just only one point we need to do here is we have to use database dot, so collection. In that TBL products, into the TBL products, we need to insert. We have to use insert. We can use insert, we can use insert one, we can use insert many. This insert is deprecated. So we can just use insert one. And what data you want to insert? The data that you collected from the form. And we have a function that executes. So to return the response actually, that is error and the response. That means error and result. So here, so if not error, then it should just log a message console.log as record inserted. Otherwise, if there is any problem, then it should log the error console.log and it should log that error. That is how we configure. So now everything is ready. Now we need to start the server. That means app.listen. So on the port number 8080, and let's put a message console.log. So say server started. So server listening. And on this particular port number 127.0.0.1, so 8080, on that it is listening. So this is our API. We have this API ready. We can do some modifications in the API. Suppose we want to collect the categories information. We want to collect some more information. We will see that. We will do some changes in later stage. So when required actually, right? Initially, the first point in this is basic is, so we will list this get products and add products. These are technically working fine or not, because we can post the details from various locations. I will show you. So how we can test that? Let's open the terminal. So let's open the terminal. So in that server side. So this is the CD server side. Yeah. Server side. Here we created. So node REST API.js. And we are compiling this. And it says that server started. So it says server is listening and it is request is ready. Now you can use a debugger, as I told you. From the debugger, you can submit the details. You can configure the details. You can debugger both. First, I will just test the get request. That is enough. So later, now we can create http:// so 127.0.0.1:8080/get products. So if this is working fine, it should get the data and display. So it is working fine. So that means data is coming and it is used here. It is displayed here. Now, once the data is ready, now what we need to do, this URL is ready to get the data. And in order to test posting the data, you can test from the form body. That means you can test from the Postman like tools, as I showed you. So we can use the Postman like tools. Yeah, we can use the post, because from the browser we cannot test. Actually, we are expecting data from a form. Currently, we are not having any form actually, but post method in the API is there. So by using the debugging tools, you can test that. Postman or Fiddler, we can do that. Now here, so here we will configure the request here. The request is I need to get the post method tested from the URL is this. So http://127.0.0.1:8080/add product. Add product is the API, which is add products, get products, and add products is the API. So add products is the API. Fine. And now into that, it is a post method. It is expecting some data. You can see that here we have the body. We have the body. You can see this is the body. And in the body, you have two options. We have form data and we have URL encoded. This is URL encoded, form URL encoded. In our body parser, we defined that form URL encoded, right? Then what we will do here is there is a raw method of submitting the data. So raw method. So in form encoded, so what we are doing is we are defining the details. What are the details to be defined? That means we are configuring the details like, so name, what is the name? Already few records are there here. So some records are already present here. I will add one more option like suppose some LG mobile or say Samsung mobile. Okay. And that is the name. And we have another option here. I will edit this. Those are all my previous values I am having. I am removing that. So price is some price defined. Okay. Then another field is in stock. And in stock is expecting a Boolean value. Like we have true or false. So initially I just define this. You will have some points I will tell you because we have to send from the form. And we have photo. Actually, photo is a path. That means we are expecting the photo path. So photo is the path. So that means the path is assets slash Samsung mobile dot JPG, something like this. Okay, and we have one more option is category ID. Category ID is 1. These are the details we configured actually. These are the details we configured. And we are submitting these details. So that means we are submitting the details. By clicking on send, I am submitting the details. And once I submit the details, then here, so in the terminal, you can see in the terminal, it says record inserted. It says record inserted. That means it shows the confirmation that record inserted. We are submitting those details. And here I run that command here. You can see that. So the details is added here. And in stock is null because how do we send the Boolean value? I will tell you later. We will discuss that. So because different types of data, you will have issues for passing them actually. So technically, so the record is inserted. That means that it is working fine. So we have these two API methods working fine. Get products is working fine and add products is also working fine. Now the point is we need to define the values. So we need to configure the values for inserting the data and fetching the data. We have to configure the UI in Angular now. That means in Angular, we need to create an UI from where user can interact with this application. So this is the key point now. So for that, in Angular, we have to learn two things. That means API is ready. Currently REST API, I will copy that. And currently the REST API is ready. This is all the code I created. This is our final code for interacting with it initially. So this is the code that is ready. Everything is configured and everything is defined here. Everything is ready. Now the point is we need to create and consume this data in our Angular application. Now what Angular requires to handle interaction with this? That means we have to consume in Angular. And for that, what Angular requires, what we have to know. Two basic things you have to learn here about RxJS library. And another one is HTTP client library. HTTP client library. By using this, we can create an UI for communicating with the backend and pulling the data from database, interacting and all this. Now, what is this RxJS library and what is this HTTP client library? These two things we will see now in our next session, right? Tomorrow we will see that. So tomorrow you are going to create an Angular application. So for interacting with the data and the API that we created in the server side, right? Tomorrow we will see what is this RxJS and HTTP client libraries, right? How to use them, right? So then we can finish that example of complete end-to-end integration, right? So tomorrow you cannot miss that, because this is where we are handling the interaction from the client side with the backend databases, right? Tomorrow we'll continue.